Welcome back to the show. My name is Mikhail, hanging out here with Mark of Gen 3. Mark, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Great to connect. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you here. I was really interested in having a conversation with you because, uh, there's this whole notion that print is dead. And especially when you think about everything that's happening with blockchain technology in the digital world, everything's moving digital. And here you are coming in and you're saying, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot more to print than what meets the eye. So, is print dead? Is the question that I have for you.
That's a great question. That's something that I used to wake up to for the last 6, 7 years of hearing this. They like the constant drumbeat of print is dead. Like I'd wake up like, why am I doing what I'm doing? So just long story short, a little background. So you have some reference to all this. I've been in the industry for over 20 years. I'll just say over 20 years, just to not date myself. I've been working with magazines, and I was involved with several startup publications. I think I started around 2001, and I literally wandered into a house. I was in Tempe, Arizona. I went to school at Arizona State. I found myself back in Phoenix, and I was just kind of in between things at the time. I worked for Xerox. I worked for Canon USA. I was a broker at a brokerage firm, and just kind of got disillusioned with everything I was doing. So I was across the street from campus at Arizona State University in Tempe, kind of wondering what to do with my life and what my next move was going to be. So I saw a house. It was like a row of houses across the street from campus, and I saw some people in the window, like people working on a computer. I just walked in with my flip flops and torn up T-shirt and short pants. I was like, "What are you guys doing here? It's Friday night. It's 10 o'clock. What are you doing working on a Friday night?" They said, "We're starting a magazine." I said, "Really? That is really interesting." And I said, "Do you need any help?" Literally. And the guy who's a publisher kind of leans back in his chair, peeks around the corner, and says, "Yeah, we need somebody to sell ads." I said, "I'll sell ads." That was 2001, and I never left the industry. I completely fell in love with what I was doing. I came from sort of like this corporate background, sitting in a cubicle, making 100 calls a day. All of a sudden, I'm the entertainment nightlife photographer, the sales rep, the distribution manager for the magazine, and the whole connections guy for this new startup magazine in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm hanging out in nightclubs 3 days a week. I'm meeting people I thought I'd never, ever meet. And I just kept going. And it was a startup. They had no money. They were paying me in like burritos. You know what I mean? They just didn't have any money. But we kept going. And, after a few years, we were in 9 cities. They were 9 cities printing 250,000 copies of a magazine every month, going from city to city. I left, got tired of the whole sort of market they were in, fell in love with design, went with another magazine, startup, no money, got that going, another one. Finally, I decided that after, being in every area of a magazine, I decided I can do this. So I decided to pack up and come back to Pittsburgh, my hometown, and launch a magazine here. Became wildly successful. It went really well. It was called Lux Magazine. It was a portable publication that we put out in Pittsburgh of art, design, fashion, modern living, which is something you wouldn't expect to see in my hometown, Pittsburgh, but it did really well. I had a partnership from hell, and decided to cut it off and ended up in San Francisco, was going to launch a magazine there and decided if I'm going to do what I'm going to do, I need to be in New York. So I literally packed up and launched. I drove to New York City, hunkered down in a hostel with like 9 other guys in bunk beds, and launched Number Three magazine. So I did that for a number of years, and we did really well. I mean, it grew. We did New York Fashion Week. We did events. And as time went on, Google, Facebook, Twitter, they started eating up a lot of the ad revenue. So it became very difficult. And if you're not, a big sort of like publishing house like Condé Nast or Hearst, it's very difficult to do an indie magazine. So we kept going through thick and thin, and had it was kind of like this. It wasn't like this. It was up and down, and then fast forward, COVID hit. We shut down, flatlined. I came back to Pittsburgh, and just sort of hung out. Took all jobs and wondered what I was going to do. But to answer your question about print, I mean, print is dead. I don't think it's ever died. It's just become part of a much bigger picture. And if you're not part of the big picture, it could be an expensive hobby. So I found out, like, at some point you had to become a media company that printed a magazine. So you had to do everything. You had to do, newsletters. You had to do print. You had to have a digital version of your magazine. You had to do events. You had to do a lot of different things. And the print part became just part of, number three at the time. We were number three magazine, still are. That's the parent company. So, after hearing print is dead, it's interesting because I kept going even through COVID. I was thinking about when am I going to print another magazine. I think the print end of things, especially with the higher end magazines, like the real nice art design, it wasn't making sense because you would hear that, and then I'd walk into like a newsstand in Soho, and it'd be floor to ceiling magazines, beautiful magazines. And I don't think it's that. I think it's part of. It's always been part of the picture because I just think print still has that cachet. People have something physical. Digital has all the reach. That's where all the money went. But there's something something about the permanence of a magazine. So if I went to an artist or I went to a designer, or let's say I went to a fashion model for an agency, I said, I'd like to put something together, maybe put you together with a photographer, do a photo shoot for number three magazine. The first question they always ask is this print or digital? Is this print or online? And you're always doing both, but when you told them it was in the print number three magazine, their eyes just light up because the reality is that the print is always part of the picture. And I was just trying to find out, moving forward, I was thinking to myself, how can this work because the cost of putting together a print magazine, the print costs, the paper costs, everything is just going up, up, up. And I thought, it'd be great one day if we can sort of merge the technology, with the print. I didn't know how that would work. I didn't know when that would work. But anyways, during the shutdown, I got involved with Web3, and I basically started hanging out on Twitter Spaces, finding out more about the space. I was introduced to NFTs and Web3, had no idea what that was, didn't know what anything meant. It just started learning more and more about it. I thought, this is amazing. I read some article about a guy named Beeple who produced this JPEG and it sold for like $1 million. Like, what is this thing? So anyways, with all this free time over COVID, I just decided, that was the way to go. And I was on a Twitter space. I was listening to someone named Patrick Skinner talk about NFC chip technology and QR code technology. And he was talking about all the use cases for this and how far that technology has come. And it's like I've told a billion people, if you asked me about QR codes like 5-6 years ago, I would have been that's not for a magazine. You have to download something. It's a little complicated. People aren't really using them. But Now you can't get away from them. So I talked to Patrick, followed up with him. I said, can we use that technology and use those use cases and implement those use cases for a print magazine? He's like, yeah, we can do that. So we got together, found out like what we were going to do. I decided to come out with Gen 3 magazine, which is art, design, fashion, modern living, all the same things I love, but it's all digital. Everything we feature in the artist is digital art or digital design. We feature founders, we feature technology. So we spent the last 4 months, 5 months, maybe longer, putting together an issue of a magazine. And it's different. It's a lot more complicated because I've never done it. I'm not sure, how many people are doing this, but if it's just a magazine, I'm used to, pushing these out every other month. But when you have a developer for your magazine, you're suddenly relying on different people for different things. So people got wind of the concept. I was able to be introduced to some writers. Sarah, she's managing editor. She introduced me to Brian Evans, who introduced me to George Tung, and everyone just kind of jumped on board and got involved with the magazine. So we're about 2 weeks away from publishing the first, what I think is the first true interactive magazine. So people will be able to have a physical magazine. It's always going to be a magazine, but it's going to serve as um, it's going to help expedite the process of onboarding people into Web3. So they'll have the magazine and they'll be able to point their phone, utilize these QR codes, and dive deeper into the whole space. That's the whole concept of that. And that's kind of where we're at.
Well, why do you think there's such a strong social movement around print? Because, we just talked about how there's all of this attention, all of these eyes are now going to our phones, right? Or to our screens on our laptop. But it's almost less about practicality and more about the cultural movement now when it comes to print. Why
Right.
is that so sticky?
I don't, there was just an article that came out from, I think it was from Forbes, talking about print and how it's making a comeback quite a bit, just because everyone's so glued to their screens and they're plugged into everything they own. So the print is becoming sort of like a way to get away from that. And let's face it, we're doing everything. We're doing the website, we're doing the newsletters, we're doing Web 2, Web 3, we're doing Gen 3 events that we're going to be launching in New York and Los Angeles and Miami. But I think that the print is just a way for people to get away from the screen. And also, it's permanence. Like if I feature you in the magazine, you know, 10 years from now, you'll pick it up, show it to your kids, and this is what daddy looked like when he started in the industry. This is what he was doing. This is how it all started. So no matter, they're collectible, whether you keep it for a year or 20 years or 30 years, it's always there. So it's a sort of like a capsulated point in time for people to collect. It's like a trading card. It's like, why do we collect baseball cards, or why do we collect hockey cards, or whatever it is? People collect things. They collect magazines. I read another study. This was 5 years ago or so. I'm not sure if it's still true, but they did a study on to find out who's starting print magazines. That was like the goal of the study. They found out that the biggest starter of print magazines were 20-something-year-olds. I thought that's it's a surprise, but it's not a surprise. You know what I mean? It's like vinyl records. They never go away. There's still something to them. So I think it's just the permanence of print, the cachet it has. There's also the study showed there's a bigger trust level. If you see an ad in a print magazine, the psychology behind it they studied, people are more likely to trust that than something you get in your inbox. and are afraid to click on. So I think that's a big part of it as well. So it's not print or digital, it's both. So if someone asks me, I'm starting a magazine, should I do a print version or a digital version? And that really depends. But ultimately, if you want to have a magazine, there's no magic bullet. You do everything.
So, what went into your decision to add a digital component to it? Because, as you mentioned, for a long time, you said, "Hey, what's this QR code stuff?" What made you decide to finally pull the trigger and do go a little bit more digital?
I think it was just because I got involved so much with NFTs and Web3 and blockchain. And I think it had a lot to do with meeting the right people at the right time. I came across Patrick on a Twitter space. That was just by chance. So what I was surprised to hear is, the technology itself with QR codes and NFC chip technology, how far that's coming. And I started to sort of what pushed me over was like, wow, this can really take off. I mean, it could really develop. When we come out with the first issue, each issue we do, if we do it by month, we can introduce new technology and more use cases for each issue of the magazine. So it's going to be like, we're not iPhone, but it's like releasing Gen 3 1.0, 2.0, and we can really make those collectible. We're not cutting any corners on the quality, on the content, on the paper. Everything is super high end. We're going to have certain special collectible issues. You're going to be able to use the magazine. We'll be able to make certain pages come to life. We're going to do the back cover is going to be like a 3D model that's going to exist on your phone, like an NFT eventually. So we'll be introducing new things each and every issue of the magazine. Scan into events. The other thing is that what also pushed it forward was the interest from some of the events themselves, from Consensus. A lot of the big events, Web3, and a lot of the crypto events have a big interest in us being at that event and working with the magazine because we can do special issues or whatever we need to do. So that's kind of what pushed it forward, was really just the circle of the quality of the people that I'm involved with now is just amazing. So it's the talent.
When you think about the industry as a whole, what do you think the future holds for print?
I think, yeah, the goal is sort of like the vision is to, I, again, I don't think the print part of things are going away. I think there's just going to be more and more of uh, it's going to be seen almost like a device that you have in your hand. We're doing I don't have I was going to show you, but the print magazine, we have two different sizes. We have an oversized issue, which we've always been doing with Number Three magazine. It's a collectible tabletop. You find it on your kitchen, on your dining room, or in a museum, in a gallery. We also, what we're doing is a portable issue that is its portability is a key factor because you can come to an event and take that with you. So I think the just the merging of the technology and the print end of things and having them both together is going to be the future of the magazine. I'm actually working, trying to find something that replaces paper. Um, there's synthetic paper. It's hard to tear. It prints very well. It lasts 200 years. I'm looking to do something like that as well. But I think a lot of it, it's kind of hypothetical, but I just see it as something that people will continue to collect, like they collect watches, like they collect anything else, and the technology will just keep advancing.
What do you have planned for the next couple of weeks in order to launch?
Well, one of the things we have, a lot of things that are planned, it's a little bit different printing this kind of magazine because we have a printer who's located in Jacksonville, Florida. So I'm sitting in Pittsburgh. Typically, I would go to the printer, they print the cover separately, they print the magazine, we do color checks and all that kind of stuff. All that kind of thing with the printer still happens. The difference is that we are actually going to, I'll probably have to go to Florida and figure out a couple of different things. One is the actual NFC chip itself. We're going to bury it probably pages deep into the magazine. Now, the chips themselves they're as thin as paper now. They come in rolls, and they're literally a sticker you could put on a page. So one of the things that we're going to do is there's going to be a special tape that goes over that on that page to keep people from scanning through the magazine. So you have to actually purchase the magazine, open it up, and utilize the chip and scan it. So that I'm looking to potentially get to a point where the chip is actually in the spine of the magazine. Somehow we're printing that in the spine, but for now it's going to be 7 page deep. They're going to be shrink wrapped. We also have planned, I guess you would call it issue release events, one for New York. We're also putting together something for Los Angeles and one for Miami. So right now we have the print, which we'll figure out, the goal is to get the print, which we will within 2 weeks. And then what we'll do is we'll have a series of events over the coming weeks, all the way up until September, where we come out with the next issue.
That's exciting. Where can people follow along on your journey?
They can follow us on Twitter. The best thing, actually, we have a website that's launching today or tomorrow. We're finishing up. They could also follow us on Twitter, which is probably the best way. We have some links that I can send that people can follow on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. We'll include that in the description. Mark, it was a real pleasure. I really enjoyed getting to know you down in Miami, and I think with Brian and George, those guys are extremely smart when it comes to Web3, and I don't feel like they'll
Right.
steer you in the wrong direction. And with your background and expertise, in what you do, I think that you guys make a great team.
Yeah, we have a sort of a dream team going. I'm looking forward to it. The main thing is getting this print issue out and getting things rolling, and issue by issue we'll introduce something new, technology wise in each issue. But I'll keep everyone posted on the first event, which will probably be in New York.
Looking forward to hearing more about these events and your first issue launch. Really exciting times. Mark, thanks so much for hopping on with me, and it was a real pleasure.
All right, have a good weekend.